When it comes to where we are now, our kids understand what allowance is, how to use their spend money, how to save, how to distribute their money into their different buckets. But now we're at a point where we're like, now what?
Since you're already sort of on this 2, almost maybe even into phase 3, I'll just kind of take people a step back and say, phase 1, what you've already been through and is really, really important is to get your kids excited about compound interest, right? So John, he got to that $500 mark pretty quickly because whatever he put into his investment bucket, you were paying 10% on that monthly. And wow, that's a phenomenal interest rate. So he got it. And even my kindergartner got it when she started, when she was that young, because it's pretty amazing when you see money multiply that quickly. So that's phase 1.
But I will tell you, I was doing it wrong, and we corrected that course. And I'll just say that, he wasn't learning the lesson the way I wanted him to, because I thought he was supposed to put that 10% back into the investment. So that's why it grew really fast. I was basically just feeding his investment bucket, but not really teaching him what that felt like to have the money in his hand from that action. So
once you corrected it, did he get super excited about the compound interest?
There was some learning. I mean, definitely he understood. He understood the concept of money making money on itself.
Great.
But yeah, we didn't really have the opportunity to do it the right way. But with Cassidy, we do. And once we adjusted course with her, she very clearly understands that she will get more money to spend if she puts more money into invest. So we did win there.
And so now she is at the point, or was at the point a while back here, where she's diverting money into invest because she sees that it makes sense to delay some of the gratification because she's getting more income out of it, right? She does see that?
She sees it. Cassidy's an interesting study, though, Alec.
Yeah.
She still puts the minimum. She puts the minimum in every bucket except spend. It's just the way she operates. And I hope at some point she adjusts course, but she is a spender.
And maybe this goes to what you say, I wish I started this with my kids when they were younger, but that is what you're going for. You're trying to get them excited about compound interest. And there are some kids that will get it and gravitate and they're like, oh my goodness, I got to put almost everything into invest. And some are going to be like Cassidy and put it on to spend, some to give. But as long as they are excited enough where they understand why they're diverting some of the money into invest.
Right. Okay. John had $500 in his investment bucket. I no longer wanted to pay, shell out the 10%, every month. Monthly. Yeah, that was a lot. Yeah. So we talked about it and he said, I want to take 300 of this and plug it in to the stock market and see what happens. So I said, okay, we can do that. And I didn't really know where else to go. So I went to Stockpile and I said, okay, here's some options. And he said, I want to buy Tesla, Amazon, and Google. And so we did that, right? And so now we're kind of at this crossroads of like, what's next? I don't even know how to really
discuss it with them.
Discuss it. Yeah. So I really want your guidance on how parents, A, get started with their kids, and B, what the next steps are as you see them to a successful learning journey in investment world.
So first of all, I'd say that you are right on schedule. I mean, they're in middle school. I mean, this is exactly the time where, one, they should be accumulating that much in the investment bucket. And then two, you're like, okay, well, now what do I do with it? That is exactly where you want to be, right around that time frame. And the goals for the investment bucket for investing during middle school and investing during high school are really the same as the goals for when they're younger and for the other buckets, for the spend, save, and give buckets. And it is, you're trying to create a platform for practice and something that will breed familiarity. Because as a financial advisor for many years, Julie, what I can say, unfortunately, is that most people who come into my office and we go over their investments, they look at me with a blank stare. A lot of them, they view that visit with me as a chore, and I push them to it, as opposed to they have an interest or a desire to understand. And that is not what I want for my kids. It's not what I want for your kids. It's not what you want for your kids, or anybody really wants for their kids. They want their kids to be informed, be good decision makers, and understand what's happening with their money, as opposed to, you know, what's happening to their money and based on decisions other people are making. So we need to kind of keep in mind what is the goal. If the goals are practice and familiarity, notice what I didn't say as a goal are profits, right? Profits are secondary. They are nice and they get kids excited, but it is not the primary driver of the conversation. So I think that's kind of important about goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I will be honest. I haven't shown John his statement because we just put the $300 in August and September for COR Day. They weren't looking so good. I mean, they had significantly gone down. And I didn't want to discourage him from investing more at that time. And I talked to you about that the other day, and you steered me in the opposite direction. So I think, you know, you had a really good reason for presenting it and showing him, yes, it did go down, but here's what we're going to learn, and this is what we're going to watch for. So do you want to talk about that?
Everything's on sale.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything's on sale. Like, hey, when you go and you buy stuff, you want to buy things that are on sale. You don't want to buy when it just comes out and it's top dollar. But I do always have to add and keep in mind that I'm not making any investment recommendations. What I am recommending wholeheartedly is that everybody needs to teach their child about investing. That is the wholehearted recommendation. There's nothing about any particular company that is totally agnostic for me, for sure. But yeah, so we'll definitely talk about that, and that they're delaying gratification on that piece of money because they're not going to get it until they're 16 or 18 or 21 or whatever parameters you put around it. Like, this is good. That's phase one, is to get them there.
Right.
Okay. Phase two, which is also the next course, which is in production, is now saying, okay, we know we're using allowance as a foundation to teach about spending, income, and credit, but this course two is taking entrepreneurship through the lens of a lemonade stand and saying, okay, let's use that to teach the world of investing and go from there. And so the reason that I go through that exercise, and I know, Julie, your kids are super entrepreneurial, is because a lemonade stand, or for your kids, the jewelry stand that Cassie was doing for a long time, or John's brand, he was doing Fly Right Through It. I mean, his brand, the t-shirts and all of that, is because the investment world is really a microcosm of business in a lot of senses. So I'm just going to kind of take you through. How would you like it, Julie, if I explain to you in less than 7 minutes why people invest and the entire universe of investing? How would you like that?
I would like that in 7 minutes. And you have to talk to me like I'm an elementary school age child, because that's about where my understanding is.
I want you to know that this is the exact same thing that not only do I teach an elementary child or two, my own, but I have clients who are worth many hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's the same exact explanation that I take them through. So no parent should feel badly about any sort of elementary level education of finance, because they don't teach it in schools certainly they didn't when you and I were in school. And now they only teach it in some states in, potentially in high school for like one semester. So nobody should feel badly about that. Like, nobody knows anything about this stuff. So it's all good. Okay. So let's first start with, why do we invest? The simple reason of why we invest, why do we not just take our money and just stick it in a mattress, is because of inflation, which is all over the news lately, right? Here's why inflation rules investing, and why we know that inflation is always going to be there. Things get more expensive. That's the nature of inflation. And we know that that's going to happen because there is a branch of the government, or not a branch, but a part of the government, that it is their mantra to make sure we have inflation. And they want it to be around 2 to 3%. So we know that everything is going to get expensive on average over time by 2 to 3%. So if we just take our cash and we stick it in a box, we're literally losing purchasing power every single year. Okay. So I'm going to explain to you, though, the magic ingredient of why that is. So, Julie, let's say you're in the market for a new TV. Okay. And I give you $1,000 and I say, TV costs $1,000. And you're like, great, I need a new TV. I say, but Julie, if you wait a month, the TV is going to cost $1,200. What would you do?
I'd buy the TV now.
Exactly. Now, that's inflation. Now, if I said, hey, Julie, here's the $1,000, but if you wait a month, the TV is going to cost $850. Now, what would you do?
I'd wait a month.
Exactly. That's why we need inflation.
Did I answer that right? Did I do those
you
questions?
Did.
Right, yeah.
And did I ask you like an elementary student?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we're doing good.
Okay, so A+ so far. So if you extrapolate that throughout the entire economy, right? If things got less expensive, the whole economy would fall apart. People get laid off. It would be a gigantic mess. But if things get more expensive, then the economy rolls. People are incentivized to buy.
Oh.
So, right? So we must have inflation, which is why the Federal Reserve, literally, they have only two jobs, and that's one of them, is to make sure we have healthy inflation, 2 to 3%. That's why we invest. That's it.
Yeah.
Now the question is, what can we invest in? There's only 4 possible things that we can invest in. We, as an industry, meaning Wall Street, we've done a wonderful job of making this super, super confusing, right? Because we chop these things up in a million different ways, and we, have newspapers about it, and do they have newspapers anymore? Do they make those?
I haven't seen one in a long time.
Okay, so maybe they don't make those. But they have TV channels about it, and they have all sorts of stuff, and apps and websites. Yes, all of that stuff, okay? But there's only 4 things. The only 4 things that you can invest in are, 1, is a stock. What is a stock? A stock is a piece of a company. You're buying in as a part owner of a company. Okay? So that's 1. The second is bonds, which few people understand, but I'm going to make it very easy. Bonds are basically people lending people money. I give you $1,000. You say, hey, I'm going to pay you interest on that. And after our agreement period, I'm going to give you your money back. It's just a loan. That's all a bond is. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. So far, so good.
Third thing is hard assets. Those are things if they fell on your foot, they would hurt. Gold, foodstuffs, lumber, real estate, right? Things you can touch and feel, that's it. Those are hard assets. And the last thing is currency, money. So I don't care if you call that Bitcoin. I don't care if you call that the dollar or the yen or whatever. Currency, cash, right? So that's it. Those are the only 4 things we can invest in, okay? So if I go back to the lesson of entrepreneurship, let's talk about Cassidy's jewelry venture, that's a company. So that is a platform you can use to explain all 4 of those things. I mean, she was the owner of a company. So you can talk to her through that lens. Maybe she has a need to borrow money. Well, that would be a bond conversation. She has to buy materials. She has to buy beads. Those are hard assets. And she's using currency all the time. So those 4 things that we can buy, they're all represented in that particular entrepreneurial venture. That's why that exercise is so important. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah.
If we look at it through that lens, what I would say is ideally, so there's something called a UTMA account, and that's for the Uniform Trust for Minors Act, and it allows you to open an account, which you did already, through Stockpile, and you go there, you open an account, and you are the trustee, so you get to make the decisions, because John is not an adult yet, and you get to buy investments. So you've been through phase 2, right? They have entrepreneurial experience. You've talked about stocks. You've talked about companies. You haven't talked about the other 3 things, which you can now, even though you might not call them those things, right? And you want to start buying things. Now, how do you know what to buy? You did the perfect thing, even without really knowing. It was, okay, John, what things do you believe in? What products do you use? What products do you like, right? I mean, those are the basic conversations. And ultimately, when you buy a stock, which is what you did, you're buying a company. So the decision that you would make, Julie, if you were going to buy a company, forget Tesla or anything, any Amazon or whatever companies you mentioned, if you were just going to go buy a company because you thought, hey, this is a great thing, I want to go buy this kitchen utensil company because I'm a chef, you would look at it and you would say, okay, well, what have you done in sales? Okay, that's good. And the next question you would probably ask is, okay, well, what about sales going forward? What about your projected sales? Like, how are you going to do next year? Those are the most important questions. I really don't care what you did. I really won't care what you're going to do. When you look for things to buy with your kids, those are the questions. That's it. You're just looking for practice opportunities, right? Going back to the goals, practice and familiarity. So it's, why do you like Tesla? Do you think they're going to do well going forward? Oh, that seems logical. okay, then this is a good experiment for them.
Right. And like with John, he wants to make sure also that it's a good company for the earth because he's very environmental.
Great.
And so when I think that was part of Tesla's. He sees them all over the road. There's more and more every day. He knows that it's a forward moving company, but he also believes that it is doing something positive. And so talking about that has been really good for us too, is yes, there's the money aspect, but you also want to feel connected and proud of the companies that you're supporting.
Wonderful. And that's incredible because you want to do what's important to him and what does he feel is going to be successful going forward.